Happy Canada Day. While a small and loud segment of the population wants to make the celebration of Canada taboo, they are woefully misguided. Looking solely at our past errors, and we've made our share, is not the right standard by which to measure Canada and its great achievements. So then what does make Canada great? There are many reasons, and I'd like to focus on just a few. First is freedom. The long tradition of rights and norms establishing our freedoms goes all the way back to the Magna Carta and has been built upon over centuries of incremental, imperfect improvement such as the Charter. It was this tradition of freedom that drew my ancestors with barely the clothes on their backs, knowing almost nothing of how they would make their living here, but knowing that energy and commitment and hard work would find their reward, and they would be entitled to keep the fruits of their labor. That freedom includes what is perhaps our greatest endowment, the institutions, beliefs, and behaviors that most of the rest of the world still have not mastered, an inheritance of freedom almost without peer in the world. These are uniting values. The fact that no political party has been able to articulate and defend those mainstream values is the greatest reason for our divisive and fractured politics. People flock here to be changed by the Canada we love, not to live as they would have in the societies from which they came, but to live as Canadians do, heedless of points of origin and focused on a shared destination of self-respect, dignity, and freedom as Canada has come to understand these things. Multiculturalism in Canada isn't the cause of our success, it is a result. Diversity isn't our strength. Our strengths attract diversity. People come from all nations because of the freedom, stability, and opportunity that Canada offers. They don't come because people from all nations come here. Freedom under the rule of law makes possible a society in which each of us has been given more latitude to shape our lives according to our individual beliefs and desires than anywhere else on the face of the earth. That deserves our loving gratitude and respectful humility. The other thing that makes Canada great is our willingness to sacrifice to protect this precious and rare inheritance. When my ancestors arrived from Ireland in the 1820s, they could not have known that their grandson would fight in the Great War, or that his son, my father, would serve in both the Second World War and Korea. Whether facing down Nazism or communism or Salafi jihadism, whether in Korea, in Kosovo, in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and Syria, or in Latvia, Canadians have always been willing to put everything on the line so that the things we most value will be protected at home and abroad. Because, as Tommy Douglas so sagely observed, what we want for ourselves, we desire for all. But perhaps this is an unfashionable and historically ignorant patriotism. According to Samuel Johnson, patriotism is the last refuge of a scoundrel. If the views of Canada's young people are anything to go by, they largely agree with Johnson. In a way, I'm not surprised that young Canadians view Canada with some suspicion. Much of what they have been taught is that our past is nothing but a repository for all that is retrograde and shameful. They believe it is filled with racism, sexism, homophobia, colonialism, militarism, genocide, and environmental destruction. It's easy to criticize the past and the decisions made there, but it is a conceit of each and every generation that they alone are free from poor judgments and intellectual shortcomings and historical myopia. As I've said, despite Canada's many errors, looking solely at these errors is not the right standard by which to measure Canada and its great achievements. Only a handful of societies have figured out, slowly and painfully, the institutions and behaviors that allow us to corral the horsemen of the apocalypse, pestilence, war, famine, and death. Canada is at the forefront of those nations, and it is thanks to our history of struggle against the worst human afflictions that we now enjoy the conditions where our young people can look back in horror at how things used to be. It is the progress made possible by the economic, social, and yes, the moral advances of our forebears that have allowed us to enjoy peace, order, and good government in generous measure. Confederation itself was no exercise in crude majoritarian triumphalism, but an exquisitely wrought compromise between contending cultures, languages, and religions that has made us one of the longest enduring political orders on the planet. We have constantly expanded our notion of rights in response to genuine wrongs and real grievances. Canadian blood and treasure were expended in righteous struggles like the Second World War in Korea, because when the world called, we were not found wanting. As we have become wealthier, we have worked hard and with great success to improve our environment, our education, and our social supports. This generation is the one called upon to right the many wrongs done to Aboriginal peoples in our history, and Canadians give every sign of wanting to rise to that challenge. We cannot change the past, but our determination to ensure that past mistakes will not recur does not require us to despise our past. I have always believed that the true measure of a man or a woman or a country is not mistakes, for who among us has never made a mistake, but how we respond to those mistakes by taking responsibility, making amends, and making every effort to ensure they don't happen again. On this measure, Canada has little of which to be ashamed and much of which to be proud. So celebrate Canada and Canada Day in good conscience, and like all the generations who went before, resolve to leave our beloved country even better than you found it. I'm Brian Lee Crowley for the Macdonald-Laurier Institute.